Throughout last week, HuffPost Live ran several panel discussions on GamerGate. Invited to provide their perspective and opinions were several industry notables. I was also invited. After my appearance, I checked my Twitter and found I had 160 notifications. A few hours later, I had several hundred notifications. In the words of Keanu Reeves, whoa. Most of them were retweets and favorites of the same few messages, but I did have about 4 dozen questions, critiques, and comments. I promised I'd make a video addressing them, so here we are. And here we go. Chris said, "Haha, Andrew Eisen just blamed GamerGate for harassment that happens to people in GamerGate. What a complete joke." Chaz Dragoon responded, "So he's victim-blaming GamerGate for the harassment they get? His IQ must not be on Wii U 2. Followed by Hex's Work, who said, "It's our fault for getting bomb threats. We should have known better." SJW logic. When you participate in panel discussions like this, you know what the general topic is, but you rarely ever know what specifically you're going to be asked. As such, for many of us, myself included, it can be a challenge to immediately respond to questions we had no way to prepare for in a succinct and coherent manner. This means we often don't phrase things as eloquently as we'd like, and that can lead to misunderstandings. Hell, sometimes we just flat out misspeak. Having said that, I didn't blame GamerGate for the harassment it has received. I blamed elements within GamerGate for contributing to the negative perception that many have of GamerGate. Here's what I said.
I think that the origins of GamerGate and the attitudes and behavior of many within GamerGate contribute to that incredibly negative perception.
And lest anyone thinks I'm playing the selective editing game here, you'll find a full transcript of my HuffPost comments in the video description. Mr. Gene Dancin' Machine says, "Getting tweeted isn't harassment. Let's establish that first, yeah? Jesus fucking Christ." Getting tweeted certainly can be harassment, and I know a lot of people who agree. Both GamerGate and not. Mr. Gene Dancin' Machine also said, "This guy, Andrew Eisen, deleted a YouTube thread where he got proven wrong. Douche detected." No, I didn't. I don't know how I can prove I didn't delete something. The only thing I can think of that he might be referring to is a thread in a recent YouTube vid where I got the timing of a particular event incorrect. But I didn't delete it. It's still there. You'll find it linked in the video description. Drought asks, 14 articles about the gamer identity being dead is silence in your opinion? Of course not, but the articles you're referring to were published by online news outlets, and that's not who I was asked about. This comment...
Mostly bafflement and then complete silence.
...was in response to this question.
What were the organizations, so the game companies, tech companies, etc., responses to GamerGate?
Vivian James says, "Glad that Andrew Eisen and Caro MT seem to be taking time to respond to concerns. Simply reaching out is more than GamerGate usually gets." No problem. Punished Vey says, "This is pretty awesome. Thanks for making the effort, guys." Sure thing. Vivian also said, "I think Andrew Eisen did a decent job without going too into detail." Hey, thanks. The Advocationist said, "Notice that too. Almost impossible not to get bogged down in minutia. I think he walked the line well." Thank you kindly. Kathy Young says, "Game Politics, a news blog I write for, has given GamerGate pretty fair coverage in the past." To which Brad Glasgow, who's written for Game Politics, replied, "He has 100 stuffed animals tied to a stripper pole. Do not trust him. It's only 50. These next few tweets all appear to be aimed at this response of mine.
An indie developer that a lot of people had issues with, both in the games she made, the types of opinions she espoused, and the way the games industry was covering her at the time. started talking about her personal life, and then started talking to journalists about, look at all these personal bad things that she's doing in her personal life. You should stop talking about her video game and giving her positive coverage because she's a bad person. A lot of us aren't gossip columnists, so we said we don't care. And then they said, well, there's improper relationships between this indie developer and a games journalist, and that's affecting this journalist's coverage of her work. And journalists said, oh, well, okay, let's look into this. Saw that there was nothing there because there was no coverage. There was no preview, no review. And we said, there's nothing there, folks.
Vivian James says, ironic, Andrew Eisen says someone's personal life won't affect whether a journalist covers them, when we've seen this in GamerGate for a year. Someone's personal life absolutely can affect whether a journalist covers them, but in this specific case, the games press roundly wasn't interested in the infidelity allegations made against a little-known indie dev by some guy no one's ever heard of. Vivian continues, not only will journalists give coverage to friends, but they also refuse to cover the people who they disagree with politically. That's true. Although in my opinion, giving coverage to friends is not necessarily a bad thing, it is something that should be disclosed. And it's also true that there are journalists who refuse to cover people they disagree with, politically or otherwise. Stevo says, ha! Kay, he thinks journalists are immune from terrible judgment decisions. No, I don't. We are just as fallible and prone to screwing up as everybody else. Drought asks, how is a game developer having sex with a game journalist and exchanging email about coverage of the game not unethical? Well, taking your tweet exactly as it's written, it's not unethical because, unless they're engaging in corporate espionage or something, there's nothing wrong with consenting adults having sex and exchanging emails. What would be unethical is if the journalist in your hypothetical then proceeded to write a review or preview of the developer's game without disclosing the nature of their relationship. Although, in my opinion, unless you're running a one-person operation, you should probably just get someone else to cover the game. But that's neither here nor there because the journalist in question never reviewed or previewed the developer in question's game. Hold that thought. I'll get to positive coverage that's neither review or preview in a minute. Hold your horses. GamerGateBlog.d says, no conflicts were found, Andrew Eisen. You, sir, are a liar. Conflicts of interest, I assume? I didn't say none were found. I said a specific allegation was proven to be false. And it was. Douglas says, hi, Andrew Eisen. You just said GamerGate allegations out of the ZP were proven to be false. That's incorrect. No, I said one specific allegation was proven to be false. And that is indeed correct. I Am Wrestled said, journalists started looking into it? Andrew Eisen, you seem delusional, mate. I looked into it. And I know several other journalists who did as well. The Dream Machine asks, curious, but why did you claim Zoe Quinn never got positive coverage in the Huffington Post coverage when she clearly did? I made no such claim. I said her game, Depression Quest, was never reviewed or previewed by Nathan Grayson, the journalist in question. Now, as for positive coverage of Depression Quest, Grayson once called it a powerful twine darling in a rock paper shotgun post listing 50 games that had just hit Steam Greenlight. Now, I did come across that article when I looked into the allegation, but I disregarded it because it was published on January 8th, 2014, months before they were alleged to have started dating. Look, if you think that tweets between Grayson and Quinn show a friendship close enough to necessitate a disclosure when quoting her in a September 2012 article about Valve charging a $100 entry fee for Steam Greenlight, and a March 2014 article about a failed indie game reality TV show, that's fine. It is. It's fine. But that's not the allegation that was brought to my and other journalists' attention in mid-August of last year, and it's not what I was referring to on the Huffington Post. B. Caphill says, she, and to clarify, she is referring to Modarressy-Tehrani, the host of HuffPost Live's GamerGate segments. She just blamed the bomb threat against GamerGate on GamerGate. As proof GamerGate harasses people? James Maynot responded, "Yep." B. Cap Hill replied, "And Andrew Eisen even knew better and didn't do a fucking thing to correct her. His own fucking site reported on both bomb threats and he just let it go." And MetaYahoo chimed in with, "Andrew Eisen knows a true neutral fights bullshit on both sides, so it's funny he claims he is, yet lets shit fly." Here's what she said.
And I do want to point out as well that the SPJ, Society of Protective Journalists, actually had an event. It was supposed to be happening in the middle of August. But as you can see here, reported by Reason, a bomb threat disrupted the SPJ Airplay Gamergate debate. So on the one-year anniversary of Gamergate, clearly the controversy continues. And also, for those who are saying that there is no harassment, there clearly is a proven instance of harassment for those who even just want to talk about what Gamergate is and the ramifications as well.
So, no. She did not blame the Airplay bomb threat on Gamergate, nor did she use the threat as proof that Gamergate harasses people. She did start out by saying the event was
supposed to be happening in the middle of August,
which implies it didn't happen, but she quickly course-corrected and said,
a bomb threat disrupted the SPJ Airplay Gamergate debate.
So I didn't feel the need to ignore the questions she subsequently asked me in order to ensure she was aware that Airplay was interrupted in medias res and not cancelled before it had begun. Mafeels says, "The only boys' club was when all the girls attacked you for admitting you played games. Girls were never excluded." Andrew Eisen, how do the female protagonists of the 1980s and early 1990s fit into your boys' club narrative? What boys' club narrative? I never used the phrase during the segment, and I was never asked about it, so... But Mafeels asked me another question. Was wondering if you'd be willing to address the comment that David being David Rudin, one of the guests I was on the segment with, was wondering if you'd be willing to address the comment David refused to address on the segment. I don't agree that David refused to address your question, but if you're interested in my thoughts, sure.
A lot of these people conflate disagreement with their opinion and harassment.
Oh yeah, I see people on all sides mixing the two in both directions. I've seen simple disagreements labeled as harassment, and I've seen blatant harassment tagged as mere criticism. My suggestion? Dictionary. Know it. Love it. Use it.
Also, trying to gender things like rape and harassment is unbelievably sexist.
I agree. While there's certainly nothing wrong with discussions on those topics focusing on one gender or the other, rape and harassment are certainly not exclusive to either. Okay, that's enough for one video, but that's only half the tweets I received. For my responses to the rest, please check out Super Podcast Action Committee episode 156, where my co-host, E. Zachary Knight, and I spend nearly an hour going through them. You'll find a link in the video description. I thank you for your tweets, I thank you for your patience while I produce this video, and I thank you to continue politely pestering Sega to localize Yakuza 1 and 2 HD edition for the West. I wants it. Later, Gators.